Elon Musk reveals how fear turns even a black homeless man into an unstoppable millionaire. They say fear keeps people frozen. But what if fear could fire you up? What if it's actually the secret spark to flipping your whole life upside down? Starting from the coldest, darkest street corners. That's exactly what happened to Marcus. A man without a home, without a handout, barely holding on to his own shadow, in a city that barely notices when people disappear. He walked these streets like a ghost, sinking under the weight of hunger, hurt, and 1,000 silent no's slammed in his face every day. The kind that don't crack your bones, but crush your soul. One night, drenched in sweat and soaked from the rain, Marcus stumbled on something strange. A battered leather journal left behind on a park bench. It wasn't just any notebook. This thing was stuffed with scribbled plans, big deals, notes on crushing fear and grabbing control of your life like you owe it money. The kind of stuff. Who loses this? Why here? And why did his trembling hands reach straight for it, like it was his last chance? The words inside jumped off the pages. Sharp truths about fear, strangling dreams, raw lessons on rising from the wreckage, and blueprints for owning the game instead of begging for scraps. Marcus's chest tightened at every line. He could almost hear the voice behind those tips, a silent mentor whispering, daring him to believe he could be more, that he could claw his way out. But stepping into that world, it wasn't just hard. It was a lightning strike in a gas station. The streets were buzzing, watching him differently now. Some eyes filled with doubt, others with scorn. "Man, why you messing with things you don't know?" a voice sneered from a distance. Mothers pulling their kids close. Strangers turning away like they smelled something wrong. All of it wrapped around Marcus like a chokehold, tight enough to crush a man's hope. Still, something inside him roared louder than the judgment. A fire growing fierce, unstoppable. Then, faster than you'd expect, things got ugly. A rival appeared, slick, ruthless, a magnate who smelled money and territorial power like a shark smells blood. His glare was cold and sharp, slicing through every step Marcus took toward the top. He sent warnings, threats in shadowed meetings, and hit Marcus where it hurt, trying to break him before he could break through. But Marcus wasn't just fighting off a stranger now. No, this was war with his own fears too. The voice inside that whispered, "You ain't built for this." The doubts that stuck like chains, and the weight of what it would mean to win or lose. Not just money, but identity, pride, the chance to become a symbol for everybody who ever thought life had already written their story in dirt. Just when Marcus started believing he might rewrite his page, a dark secret from the journal's original owner flickered to life, twisting their fates together in ways neither could have guessed. A secret buried deep, sharp enough to rip everything apart and drag Marcus back into the shadows he was fighting to escape. Now, standing on the edge of a dream and a nightmare, Marcus knew one thing. This story wasn't over, not by a long shot. What comes next? Can he squash the past, or will it crush him first? Only time's got that answer. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important warning. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube removed their subscriptions without notice. Take a quick look at the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I don't want you to miss any exclusive content that's coming. And since you're here, drop a powerful like that really helps me with the algorithm. Oh, and let me know in the comments, what city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's interact. Marcus stood there, caught between the weight of ambition and the grind of reality. His heart raced, and the night air felt electric. This was his moment, a chance to step away from the shadows. But it felt like the ground beneath him might open up at any moment, swallowing him whole. He clutched the journal tight, but the words inside didn't feel like armor anymore. They felt like a chain. Marcus took a deep breath, ready to face his fears head on, ready to rise. But then, the unexpected happened. A shout pierced the air, raw and wild, fueling a different kind of fear. It came from behind him, from the direction of the dark alleyway. The sound split the night. "Get back, you crazy dog!" Marcus spun around, heart in his throat. A crowd began to gather, buzzing with confusion and concern. Was it a fight? A theft? But then he saw the figure. A man, tall and frantic, his shirt soaked in dark red. Panic crawled into Marcus's chest. "Call the cops! He's bleeding out!" someone cried, voice quavering. The chaotic energy pulsed through the crowd, their faces painted with horror. Marcus's stomach twisted. This was not just a scrap between rival gang members. Something was deeply wrong. In that moment, time stretched. He stepped closer, both drawn in and repelled. The man was crumpled against a lamppost, a deep gash across his arm. Blood flowed like a silent scream. But as Marcus peered closer, his breath caught. The man looked familiar. Eyes wide and glazed over. It was the original owner of the journal. The shock reverberated through Marcus's body. This was no coincidence. The man was connected to everything Marcus had started to pursue. "What happened?" Marcus choked out, his voice barely a whisper, heart racing faster. They found me," the man stammered, panic in his voice. "Knew I was back in town. They won't let me go this time." The night turned terrifyingly still, the crowd holding its breath. Something deeper lurked beneath this moment. A secret, a connection. The man gripped Marcus's arm with his trembling hand. Fear pooled dark around them as his whisper cut through the noise. "You have to finish what I started. You don't know they'll come for you too." Marcus felt heat rising in his cheeks, a cold chill racing down his spine. He tried to move forward, to shake off the chains of his past. Now, the ghosts were back, hovering over him. His pulse thundered, drowning out the world, the weight of choice pressing against him. Was this man just a victim? Or did he hold dark secrets that could taint everything Marcus had achieved? The crowd suddenly dispersed, the sirens wailing in the distance like angry spirits. Marcus looked down. The blood on the man's shirt wasn't just red. It was smeared with hints of betrayal, of things buried too deep. Tears brimmed in the man's eyes, a raw openness that cut through the chaos. "This is bigger than us," he gasped, his voice faltering. "Find them before they find you!" Before Marcus could react, the man's eyes rolled back, and he crumpled against him, Everything shifted. The dream of power, control, and freedom melted into a nightmare he never saw coming. What had started as a chance to rise now felt like a descent into darkness. The journal, once a guide, turned into a chain, dragging him down. Who could he trust? And where did the truth end and the danger begin? Marcus froze, left clutching the journal, aware that now he either had to run or prepare for a fight that felt larger than life itself. Would he uncover the secrets that chained him? Or would they drag him back into the shadows where he came from? Time was slipping away, and the storm was just beginning. Standing on that precipice, Marcus felt the weight of countless eyes drilling into him. The tension was as thick as rotten fog. Every stare, a knife aimed at his back. The air buzzed with whispers, but within it, he could hear something louder. His heartbeat, a primal drum urging him forward, daring him to take that leap. What was hiding behind the pages of that journal? With a tight grip on the leather cover, he took a deep breath, the chill of the night biting at his skin. He was ready to confront the shadows, both outside and within. But just as he turned the page to unleash the next step of his plan, the world seemed to shift. A deafening crash echoed through the park. A car careened into the street, slamming into a lamppost. Metal crunching like a snack. Adrenalina. Shotru Marcus asitarte tomar del noise. The damp asphalt was slick underfoot, and he stumbled, hardly registering the chaos. He reached the scene, heart hammering. A young woman crawled out of the shattered vehicle, blood trickling down her face, her eyes wild with fear. "Help!" she gasped, her voice hoarse. "My baby! Inside!" Before he even thought, Marcus dashed toward the wreckage. Flames started licking at the edges, crackling, taunting him. Each step felt like a mile, and his breath quickened. The world narrowed around him, concentrating only on that call for help. He reached for the handle, wrestling with the door. Metal shrieked as he forced it open. Inside, a car seat lay overturned. His heart dropped. There, tiny arms flailed, a baby's cries, a piercing melody of desperation. He grabbed the seat, cradling the child, the warmth comforting against the monstrous backdrop. He pulled the baby close as he frantically backed away from the blooming fire that was taking over like a beast unleashed. But in his wake, he locked eyes with a man standing by the crowd. A familiar face twisted with a smirk. It was Daniel, the rival who tried to intimidate him before. The smug look chilled Marcus. Something flickered in Daniel's eyes, a triumph that sank deep like a poison. "Nice rescue, Marcus," Daniel called out, voice dripping with sarcasm. "But the flames don't tell your story, do they? You think saving a baby's going to change anything? You don't belong here." Before Marcus could respond, pain exploded in his chest as a hand clamped down on his shoulder, spinning him around. An officer stood before him, eyes narrowed. "What's going on here?" In that moment, the officer looked past Marcus to the man he just rescued. A recognition flared, eyes widening. "Wait, is that?" The murmur rippled through the crowd. A police officer stepped up, whispering into a radio, and suddenly tension shifted. Gasps filled the space. "What?" Marcus shouted, confusion clouding his mind. "It's her," the officer murmured, horror creeping into his voice. "She's connected to the case. The missing child from last week. We thought she disappeared." The earth seemed to tilt beneath Marcus's feet. The baby? Was she not just innocent but central to a bigger nightmare? Questions twisted like a serpent around his thoughts. And there it was, the dark secret from that journal, pulling old threads of his past toward a reckoning he never saw coming. This wasn't just his chance to shine. It was a trap, a twist in fate he could never have prepared for. As sirens wailed in the distance, the gathering storm of uncertainty gathered around Marcus, emotions swinging wildly from elation to despair. Was rescuing a life the beginning of his story, or the unraveling of everything he'd fought for? Banging thoughts threatened to spill over, but one thing was clear. The game was just starting. The crowd buzzed with chaos, every eye darting between the wrecked car and the police officer who had just grasped the gravity of the situation. Marcus stood frozen, clutching the baby like a fragile promise against the storm. He felt the tension, the electric current of fear sweeping through the air, almost palpable. "What are you doing here?" A shout rang out as more officers arrived. The swarm of blue uniforms felt like a rising tide, ready to consume the unfolding drama. The officer's gaze shifted. "Call for medical support, now!" Sweat glistened on his brow as he leaned closer to the crumpled girl. Urgency replacing caution. Yet, just as the wail of an approaching ambulance split the air, a different sound emerged, sharper and more sinister. The crack of a gunshot sliced through the night. Time froze. Marcus instinctively crouched over the baby, heart roaring in his ears. The crowd gasped. Hands flew to mouths, and dread pooled heavy in the air. Sound swirled into chaos. A body fell. Daniel lay on the ground, his smirk replaced with shock, a crimson stain spreading across his chest. "No!" Marcus gasped, frantic eyes darting to Daniel's expression of disbelief, the life draining from him. Was this real? The rival he'd fought against now sprawled before him, a victim of something darker than their game. "Get back, everyone!" the officer barked, panic creeping into his voice as he cleared a space. Other officers rushed to Daniel, but it was too late. The flickering flame of life snuffed out in an instant. "Who shot?" The crowd buzzed with questions, the unease thickening. Whispers of fear turned to screams as windows shattered and shadows darted in the distance. Gripped by an urgency that pierced deeper than trauma, Marcus stepped back, his breath catching. Then the unthinkable happened. From the alley, a figure emerged, a tall silhouette gliding through the chaos with unnerving calm. The contours of their face glinted under the streetlights, and Marcus went cold. It was the man from the journal, the original owner, alive and staring into the fray with chilling intensity. A stirring of recognition twisted through Marcus's gut. The man was supposed to be... He was wounded, bloodied, but now he stood tall, with an eerie confidence, surveying the scene as if orchestrating a symphony. "Finish what I started!" he called out, voice echoing over the din. "You think you're the hero? Look closer." Then, like a spotlight cutting through the dark, he pointed directly at Marcus. the weight of his accusation heavy and suffocating. "It's all on you, Marcus. This was never just about money." He could feel the world tilting, his mind racing faster than his heart. What was he saying? What did he mean? The crowd turned, murmurs escalating into frantic queries. "Who is that?" someone shouted. "Is he a ghost?" But that man's eyes held a fire, revealing truths that lurked below the surface. A connection, a twisted vine of fate that linked them in ways Marcus never expected. "Watch out behind you!" someone screamed, as another clash erupted behind Marcus. He spun, realizing too late that danger wasn't just looming. It was charging straight for him. Amidst the shooting flames and the agony of Daniel's collapse, the edges of Marcus's world frayed. This night, filled with potential triumph, shattered, unveiling a darkness that burrowed deeper than he could fathom. Before he could process, the fire raged on, becoming a beast hungry for more chaos, swallowing dreams, connections, hopes, and all he could think was, how had it come to this? As the sirens wailed in the distance, Marcus took a breath, steeling himself in the storm swirling around him. Secrets lay ahead, waiting to be uncovered, and he was caught right in the eye. What tangled web had he walked into, and how would he ever escape it? Marcus stood on the precipice, the storm of his past swirling around him. He felt the weight of the journal in his pocket, like a lifeline. But something else stirred too, a shadow creeping in from the corners of his mind. It pulsed with a rhythm of fear, tinged with doubt, and asked the question clawing at him. Would this new path truly lead him to light, or drag him deeper into the abyss? Then it happened. It was just a moment, a flicker in the dusk, but it struck like a lightning bolt. Before he could process what was happening, the world around, it shattered the evening, sending a jolt through Marcus's spine. Heads snapped toward the sound, and the crowd surged like a tide drawn to the ocean. He turned to see a figure collapsing against the wall. It was his rival, the slip magnate who had been watching him. Blood soaked through the crisp white shirt, contrasting violently with the sleek black suit. The eyes that had glared down at him only hours before now stared wide open, lost and vacant. A tense gasp spread through the crowd, a mixture of shock and morbid curiosity. Mothers pulled their children close, eyes wide, whispering frantically, Did someone stab him?" A voice punctured through the sea of murmurs. Marcus's heart raced. The realization washed over him like cold water. This was war. Yes, but not just against his rival. This was bigger. This was a game played in darkness, where rules didn't exist. He felt bile rise in his throat as he took a step back. The world spun. The face of his enemy now lay in an uneven pool of crimson on the concrete. Panic infiltrated the crowd. The hum of urgency spiraled upward. "Call 911!" someone yelled, their voice trembling. But something in Marcus's gut twisted painfully. Flashbacks of confined spaces, shadowed streets, and desperate nights spiraled into his mind. He had fought his entire life for a chance. Was this all in vain? Would the ambition that had ignited his spirit now lead him to a dead end? Then, out of the corner of his eye, he caught a glimpse of the battered journal slipping from his pocket. It skittered across the pavement, pages fluttering like a flock of frightened birds. The words he had clung to, the hope forged from its scribbles, now threatened to scatter into the void. As he lunged for it, a rough hand gripped his wrist. "Not now, man! You can't!" A stranger's face loomed close. Panic etched across their features. The crowd closed in, as though entranced, eyes glued to the unfolding horror. In that moment, the world drowned out, leaving just him and the journal. But then, his heart dropped. Shouting echoed as sirens wailed in the distance. He was being pulled into a spiraling vortex, and with every beat, he felt the past reaching out, threatening to reclaim him. As officers arrived, hauling the unconscious rival away, his eyes fell upon a chilling detail. A symbol tattooed on the magnate's wrist, one he had seen before. The ink dripping with implications. It was the same mark from the journal, connoting an underground syndicate that dealt in secrets and power. A network reaching deeper than he could ever have imagined. Then came the slam of a door and the scream of a familiar voice. "Marcus!" A woman called urgently. It was Angela, the last flicker of warmth in his otherwise cold existence, rushing toward him through panic and fear. Her gentle eyes held a storm of their own, understanding, shock, and something else. Something that sent shivers down his spine. "Get away from here! It's not safe!" she gasped, gripping his shoulder, eyes darting to the chaos. Suddenly, the pieces fell together. Not just the rival's collapse, but Marcus's own rebirth. The game had become more than just survival. Deep down, a cold dread settled. He was tangled in something much darker, much larger than he had ever anticipated. A world where fear was not just a catalyst, but a weapon. And as he wrestled with these revelations, he could feel the shadow of the past creeping closer. A weight pressing down on his chest. Could he truly escape? Or was he bound to repeat history? The question lingered heavy in the air, the answers lurking in the darkness, just out of reach. Marcus stood at the edge of everything he had ever fought for. The weight of his past pressed down like a stone, but hope flickered in his chest, brightening the darkness around him. He was ready. No more lurking in the shadows, no more being a ghost. But just as he took that breath to step forward, a blaring siren sliced through the night, making him jump. Shadows moved across the street. His heart raced, pounding like a drum in a silent room. What now? He thought, eyes darting. The crowd that had circled him began to pull back. Whispers turned to gasps. A shadow emerged. A figure so unexpected, it felt like a punch to the gut. It was the original owner of the journal, standing right there, alive and breathing. "Maya?" Marcus breathed, disbelief seizing him like ice in his veins. Her eyes sparkled with an intensity he felt deep in his bones. She was supposed to be a myth, a story birthed from the pages of that weathered leather journal. Yet here she was, a fierce warrior, light years away from the poor girl reflected in Marcus's memory. "You shouldn't have touched that," she said, her voice steady, yet edged with fear. "What do you mean?" he shot back, confusion swelling. "You left it. You wrote those secrets. You—" "Stop!" she interrupted, stepping forward. Her gaze bore into him, weighing his soul. "You don't know what you're messing with. Those words? They've drawn dangerous eyes." Panic drew her brow tight. But it wasn't just fear. It felt personal, like he'd just opened some massive Pandora's box. The imminent threats floated in the air, thick and suffocating. Marcus could feel every pair of eyes on them, judgment crackling like electricity. One voice rang louder than the rest. Words spun out like steel. "You think you can rise up from nothing?" Marcus clenched his fists, fighting against the wave of doubt. "I'm not scared of you," he shot back, defiance bubbling on the surface. But even as he spoke, his stomach twisted. What if he was just fooling himself? What if her warnings held merit? Maya's expression flickered with something darker. Pain or regret? "It's not about you, Marcus. It's bigger. You don't just turn the page. This world will fight you every step of the way." Before he could respond, chaos erupted. A figure came flying out of the dark. A clean-cut man with a tie too expensive for this alley. He charged, fists ready. The crowd gasped collectively, fear rippling through the air like a shudder. "This is your last warning." The man spat, eyes locked on Marcus. "Let her go!" For a moment, the world stopped. The weight of every decision lay heavy around Marcus, like chains pulling him under. Panic flooded in. He glanced at Maya. There was no simple way out now. "Run!" she yelled, pushing him backward. Every instinct screamed at him. Adrenaline surged as he turned to flee. But something inside held him back. "No!" he shouted, desperately looking for an escape route. He was not going to run. Not now. Everything he fought for felt within reach. But the price? Dun 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 dun. The stakes were climbing. Maya's face twisted, a painful mix of fear and strength. "You don't understand. They'll come for you next." The approaching man lunged. The expected blow never landed. Instead, Maya stepped between them with startling ferocity. The impact knocked her down, and abruptly, time froze. Marcus's blood ran cold. She hit the pavement hard, a gasp escaping her lips as she crumpled. The truth shattered around him like glass. All the rich, promising words in the journal weren't just lessons, they were a warning. Who was she really? What had he pulled into his life? He dropped to his knees beside her, heart racing, thoughts swirling. This wasn't just a fight with the world. It was a battle intertwined with secrets he never asked for. "Marcus!" she gasped, hand reaching out. Pain seeped from her words. "Trust yourself." And then everything around them blurred, drowning in darkness. All losses and gains woven together like a tangled web. The question hung heavy in the air. Would he find the strength to make it out alive? Or was the darkness coming for him too? The sirens echoed again, now closer, stippling the chaos. Time ticked ominously, and nothing would ever be the same. Marcus stood at the edge of his dream, heart pounding, hand shaking at the thought of what lay ahead. He felt the weight of the journal in his pocket, a map to his new life, a pathway from darkness to something brighter. But the shadows lurked, whispering questions, draping doubt like a shroud just waiting to drag him back down. Then it happened. He was pacing the corner of a familiar block when he saw her, a woman he swore he knew. She was lost for words, staring wide-eyed across the street, a storm of emotions swirling around her. He didn't even recognize the name that flickered in his mind, Jamila. They had exchanged brief conversations on these same streets, back when he barely spoke to anyone at all. But now, her gaze, something twisted deep in Marcus's gut. It was as if she were peering into his very soul, and what she saw terrified him. "Marcus!" she shouted, and the urgency in her voice cut through the city's noise. "You need to see this." He rushed over, heart racing, expecting her to talk about something small. But what she revealed was bigger than he could fathom. A crumpled piece of paper, a photograph. His breath caught in his throat, suffocating with shock. The image was black and white, worn at the edges, an invitation to the chaos hidden in his past. The photo featured him, young, innocent, but he wasn't alone. There stood another shadow beside him, one he had buried deep, a figure he thought was gone forever. In that moment, it felt as if the ground cracked beneath him. What is this?" Marcus stuttered, the world bending at the edges as fear clawed at him. "Look at the name on the back," Jamila urged, trembling. There it was, clear as day. A name he had not spoken in years. A name tied to his childhood nightmares. "It says your brother," she whispered, eyes wide with disbelief. His brother? But he thought he'd vanished, lost to the streets, the life he vowed never to lead. Everyone had told Marcus he was gone, swallowed by shadows, yet here was proof. The raw fear bubbled up, choking him. No, that can't be right. Panic surged through him, heart racing like it was trying to escape. "Marcus!" Jamila insisted, frustration cutting through as she stepped closer. "What if he's still out there? What if he needs you? You can't just run away from this." Suddenly, the air felt thick and heavy with the weight of realization. Somewhere, hidden between dreams and nightmares, was a possibility. What if everything he had chased was tied to his brother? What if Marcus had the chance to pull him out of the darkness? The doubt clawed inside him, a satisfying whisper. "You can't save him. You couldn't even save yourself." The specter of his past loomed large. He could feel the eyes on him, strangers peering from the shadows, wondering if he could break through, or if he was past the point of no return. Then, out of nowhere, the rival appeared. That slick suit, the cold sneer. He watched, eyes narrow, as if ready to pounce. "Thought you could escape? You're only in deeper, Marcus," he taunted, voice dripping with mockery. The world faded. Marcus stood at a crossroads. Fight the ghosts of his past, or flee into the familiar dark. Time ticked, every heartbeat a question. Would he run, or would he confront it all? What lay ahead was shrouded in uncertainty, but the choice would rip apart everything he thought he knew. And suddenly, the life he built felt so fragile, ready to unravel at any moment. Unsettled, he took a breath, ready to challenge fate itself. A battle yet to unfold, with everything on the line. Marcus stood at the edge of his dream, heart pounding, hand shaking at the thought of what lay ahead. The weight of the journal in his pocket felt heavy, yet the shadows of his past lingered, whispering doubts and fears, ready to pull him back into the darkness he fought so hard to escape. And then it happened. A sudden tension crackled in the air. Every eye narrowed as the rival stepped closer. A predator stalking its prey. "You thought I was gone for good?" His smirk was mocking, taunting Marcus like a moth drawn to an unquenchable flame. "You really don't know anything, do you? Get lost. Marcus shot back, voice firm but thin, like ice creaking underfoot. The night felt electric, charged with the looming chaos. He was ready to stand his ground, to fight. But before he could respond further, the vision of Jamila wrinkled with distress. "This isn't what you think," she yelled. "Marcus, you cannot trust him!" Like a fire igniting, the crowd buzzed with confusion, whispers darting like bees. "Who's this guy? Why? What's he talking about?" The atmosphere thickened, every moment stretching with tension, emotions shifting like well-stirred paint. Daniel, the rival, pulled something from his pocket, a flash of metal glinting under the streetlight. A gun. Heart racing, Marcus froze. A sharpened clarity cut through the storm of confusion. He was standing on a cliff, staring down into an abyss. "Put that down!" Jamila shouted, panic lacing her voice. "You don't want to!" Suddenly, a scream rippled through the night, sharp, piercing, and full of terror. It sent shivers running down Marcus's spine. He turned just in time to see Maya's silhouette ripping from the alley, face twisted in horror. "Maya, no!" Marcus cried, instinctively reaching out. But in that instant, time seemed to warp. Everything felt surreal. He saw Maya crumple to the ground. With a terrible bang, gunfire erupted, a deafening roar that merged with the night like thunder. The world blurred. Shock gripped him. "Maya!" Panic flooded his voice as he stumbled toward her. But as he reached her, the confusion shattered in the sudden flood of revelation. His breath caught in his throat. "Maya," he whispered, shaking her gently. "What did you do?" Her eyes fluttered open, swimming in pain. I wasn't supposed to," gasping for breath. The words spilled from her lips like dried leaves in the wind. "Marcus, you have to trust me." The crowd was thick now, buzzing like a hive. Whispers turned to gasps and quiet screams. How could this be happening? He clutched her hand, the warmth beginning to fade. "Find them before they find you." Her voice wavered, each word coated in a layer of desperation that split the night. She looked him in the eyes, and something shifted, an undeniable truth shimmering beneath her pain. Suddenly, the gunshot wound burst forth, crimson, a stark, deep red against the pale glow of street lamps. The world narrowed. Breathing turned shallow as Marcus desperately fumbled to apply pressure. "Stay with me. Just hold on." But then it hit him. The very air crackled with something more, a revelation digging its claws into his heart. The faces around him weren't just strangers. They were connections he had unwittingly forged. The web was tightening. "Marcus!" Jamila yelled, horror etched across her face, but her words were drowned in chaos. "You need to know." Just then, the rival's laughter sliced through the fray, a chilling sound. "You really have no idea what you've walked into. Your past is storming back and it ain't pretty." The moment stretched, like tape pulled tight. Then, before he could decipher Daniel's meaning, Maya's eyes widened with something far more harrowing than pain. It was fear, the kind that runs deep. And in that instant, a question burned between them. Who was she really? Suddenly, the sirens wailed from the distance, closing in like demons on the shore. The lights from the police cars illuminated the carnage, casting shadows that blurred the line between friend and foe. For a fleeting moment, Everything felt surreal, like a nightmare he couldn't wake from. His heart raced, despair settled like a heavy fog. Was this the end? Or was it just the beginning of something even darker? Time stretched as he cradled Maya, the intimacy of the moment tearing him apart. There was no clear end, but one fact lingered. The storm was only beginning, and secrets lay buried deeper than he could have ever imagined. As he held her, realizing the weight of the world converged upon him, one thought consumed him. Trust would come at a cost, and the next step could change everything. Marcus held Maya tight, the warmth of her hands slipping, her gentle breaths fading. The chaos swirled around them, screams, sirens, confusion. But all he could think about was keeping her alive. His heart pounded, each thud echoing a desperate prayer. "Stay with me, please," he muttered, fingers trembling over her wound. "Marcus!" Her voice broke, barely a whisper now. "You have to listen." The words caught in her throat, and he leaned in, desperate to catch every syllable. But before she could finish, the world shattered. Sounds distorted, shadows danced, and then another shot rang out. A gunshot, crisp in the night, sharper than anything he'd ever heard. The crowd jumped, utter chaos erupting like a storm. He flinched as people screamed, scattering like startled birds. His gaze darted, trying to find where the chaos came from. Panic clawed at his throat. "Move!" someone yelled, pushing past him. He caught a glimpse of Jamila's face, wide with shock. "Get her to safety!" she shouted, her voice cutting through the frenzy. But then something shifted. A figure emerged from the shadows, gliding through the chaos like a predator. Marcus squinted, heart racing. It was Daniel, the rival, but something looked off. A twisted grin spread across his face as he approached, confidence in every step, his gun still lingering heavily in his grasp. "You really thought you could save her?" he sneered. "You think you're the hero?" Marcus felt ice trickle down his spine. Everything froze. A moment stretched into eternity. But just then, the impossible swung back into focus. Maya gasped, her eyes widening beyond all pain. "Marcus, look!" Yes! He whipped around, confusion muddling his thoughts. A figure stepped forward through the crowd. A woman! "Mom?" he breathed, disbelief slamming into him like a freight train. It was her! His mother! The woman he thought he'd lost forever! But she looked older, more worn, yet the fire in her eyes burned bright. "You have to run, Marcus!" she cried, skin slick with desperation. "It's all connected, everything you fought for." His mind reeled. "What do you mean?" Suddenly, Daniel laughed, a horrible, dark sound. "Oh, this is rich! Did you really think you were free? Your mother, your brother, your past, it's all interwoven. Your fight is my game." And then a sound, a crack, a blinding flash erupted from Daniel's weapon, and chaos consumed him. Maya crumpled to the ground, eyes rolling back. "No!" Marcus screamed, heartbreak ripping through him. But then he caught sight of his mother, her face twisted, anguished. "Marcus, listen," she began, but Daniel's laughter echoed louder, drowning her out. his smug expression sending spikes of anger through him. "Finish what I started," he mouthed, the words slicing through the air like a knife. The crowd turned to him, eyes filled with horror, whispers mingling with the chaos. What had just happened? His mother's expression chilled. "You were never supposed to find out. It was safer for you if—" "Safer?" he shouted, voice raw. "Safer for who? For you or for him?" But she wasn't answering now. She was shoving through the crowd, eyes wide, searching for something. "Marcus, we don't have time!" Then the air shifted, and the reality felt like it cracked open. More figures appeared at the edge of the crowd, dark, menacing silhouettes creeping forward with an urgency that sent a chill down Marcus's spine. "Get back!" a voice bellowed. It was the cops, finally arriving. But instead of relief, dread curled in his stomach. Who would get taken into custody this time? Maya was still on the ground, fading fast. His mother's face twisted in panic. "Follow me, Marcus. We have to go." But before Marcus could make a decision, a second gunshot rang out, piercing through everything. This one changed everything. The figures froze, shadows stretching ominously as one of them crumpled to the ground. Eyes widened in disbelief. "Reveal yourself, or I'll end this!" a booming voice called, stark and powerful. Everything splintered before him. The world was suddenly painted in shades of shock, and Marcus was left clutching his fate. Everything he thought he knew spiraling in on itself. As the sirens wailed closer and chaos unraveled in waves, he realized one devastating truth. Who could he trust? He stood at the edge of everything, and the valley ahead was dark, the storm just beginning. The air crackled with tension, every heartbeat echoing Maya's fading breaths. Marcus leaned all his weight against her, fear coursing through him like ice. "Stay with me," he pleaded, desperation spilling from his voice. Her eyes shifted, a flicker of pain crossing her face. But there was something else. Determination. "You have to finish what I started, Marcus. You have the power." The siren wailed closer, slicing through the chaos. Daniel's smirk twisted further. "You think you can save her? This is bigger than you." His gun was still raised, but Marcus's focus was on Maya, her life hanging by a thread. "Don't listen to him," she gasped, panic sharpening her voice. "You're not just here for me, Marcus. You're part of something important." Suddenly, a shot rang out once more, quieting the crowd momentarily. Marcus flinched, eyes widening. He turned too late to see Daniel stumble back, a look of pure shock flashing across his face before crumpling to the ground. Gasps filled the air. People pulling back, eyes darting in disbelief. "He's hit!" someone cried, and chaos erupted once more as panic surged through the crowd. "Get your hands off her!" Marcus yelled, feverishly trying to apply pressure to Maya's wound. He looked up at the onlookers, searching for help, but all he saw were fearful faces. With phones raised, capturing every moment of the unfolding disaster instead of rushing forward. He could feel himself slipping into despair, drowning in uncertainty. But then, through the madness, his mother's familiar voice broke through. "Marcus, we need to move her!" He looked up, finally, meeting her gaze. You found me." Tears welled up in his eyes. But there was no time for reunion. They needed to act. "Now," she urged, crouching by Maya's side, eyes fierce. "We can save her, but we have to go." The crowd still buzzed, whispers growing louder. Who shot? Where's the ambulance? Marcus gathered Maya gently, cradling her like the fragile hope she represented. I'm here, Maya. You'll be okay. But the panic of the moment twisted painfully in his gut. As they turned to run, another figure emerged from the chaos. A police officer, shouting orders, fists clenched. Get back, everyone! We need a perimeter! Move! Maya groaned, a pained gasp. Every step felt like they were running underwater, time slipping through their fingers. And then he saw it, the mark on Daniel's wrist. That tattoo wasn't just a coincidence. It linked back to every dark whisper hidden in the streets and the secrets buried deep. Maya, he called, realization dawning. Is it really all connected? She nodded, anguish etched into her features. Yes, your past, your brother, everything chains back to the power lurking in the shadows. It's not over, Marcus. In that moment of frantic escape, the air felt electric, charged with possibility and dread. Time collapsed into itself, and as they burst into the street, sirens screamed past, casting blue and red lights across their faces, illuminating the chaos ahead. All at once, the world exploded with shouts, bewildered faces everywhere. Something shifted inside Marcus. Here he was, rising from the depths, a single thread tethered to everything he had ever known. The weight of his choices crested around him. Hope fought through the shadows, glimmering as bright as the sirens flashing above. And in that piercing moment of anguish and turmoil, he understood something vital. He could choose to grasp that thread, or let the darkness pull him back into the abyss. The path before him was uncertain, but with Maya by his side, and the fire of determination igniting within, he felt ready to confront whatever lay ahead. But still, a deep question lingered. Could they truly escape the past? He felt the wind shift, a promise hanging like ripe fruit just out of reach. The haunting whispers of a future unwritten beckoned to him, and he knew in his heart this was only the beginning. So as the dust settled, the shadows still loomed. Would they break free, or was this just the first step into greater danger? If you want to see what happens next, you have to subscribe immediately, so you don't miss any exclusive content coming your way. Smash that like button now. It feeds the algorithm and helps the story reach more people. Flood that comment section with your thoughts and theories, eh?